When Nkem's hand struck the old woman's face that morning at the village market, the air itself seemed to freeze. Every trader stopped mid-bargain, every child stopped mid-laugh, and the old woman, her weathered cheek now red with the mark of Nkem's palm, simply smiled. A smile that made the bravest men step back. A smile that mothers would speak of in whispers for generations. "You will know," the old woman said, her voice carrying across the silent marketplace like wind through hollow bamboo. "Before the sun sets 3 times, you will know what it means to strike an elder." Then she vanished, not walked away. Vanished like smoke dispersed by a breath, leaving only the scent of burning herbs and the echo of her words hanging in the shocked air. Nkem was born in the small village of Umuna, nestled between the great river and the ancient forest where spirits were said to dance under the full moon. She was the only daughter of Chief Okonkwo, a man whose compound was the largest in 5 settlements, whose barns overflowed with yam, whose cattle were too many to count. From the moment she took her first breath, Nkem knew only abundance, only plenty, only yes. Her mother had dressed her in the finest wrappers, even as a child. Fabrics dyed with indigo so rich they seemed to hold the night sky within their threads. Her neck was adorned with coral beads that clicked with her every movement, beads that cost more than most families earned in a full harvest season. Her waist carried strings of bronze bells that announced her presence before she appeared. She was beautiful, this was true. Her skin glowed like polished mahogany. Her eyes were large and bright, framed by lashes that seemed too long to be real. Her body moved with the grace of a river finding its path. But there was something else about Nkem, something the villagers whispered about when she passed. A hardness in those beautiful eyes, a coldness in that lovely smile, a cruelty that lived beneath the surface of her perfect skin, like a snake coiled in tall grass. "That girl," the old women would say, shaking their heads as they pounded cassava in their mortars, "has never known hunger, has never known refusal, has never known consequences." They were right. At the market, if Nkem wanted something, she simply took it, knowing her father's wealth would settle any complaint. If she desired a piece of cloth, she would snatch it from the trader's hands without asking the price. If she coveted another girl's head wrap, she would tear it away, laughing as its owner wept. The village endured her because they feared her father, because they needed his favor, because they had no choice. "She will learn," some said hopefully. "Time will teach her." But time only made Nkem worse. One market day, when Nkem was in her 20th season, she arrived at the trading square with her maids following behind carrying baskets for her purchases. She wore a wrapper of deep purple, a color reserved for royalty, and a head wrap that stood tall and proud. Gold bangles clinked on her wrists. Her feet, adorned with anklets of tiny bells, barely touched the dusty ground as she walked. The traders straightened when they saw her coming. Some with hope, knowing her father's wealth meant good trade. Others with dread, knowing her cruelty meant possible loss. Nkem moved through the market like a storm, pointing at what she wanted, her maids scrambling to collect and carry. She stopped at a woman selling the most beautiful beads, red as fresh palm oil, smooth as river stones. The old woman who sold them was named Adheres, though most called her simply Mama. She had been coming to this market for longer than anyone could remember, arriving each week with her woven basket of treasures collected from distant lands. "Those beads," Nkem said, not asked, said, "I want them." Mama looked up from where she sat on her wooden stool, her wrapper faded from many washings, her head wrap simple and worn. Her face was a map of wrinkles, each line telling stories of years lived, lessons learned, wisdom gathered. Her eyes were cloudy with age, but somehow still saw everything. "These beads are not for sale today, daughter," Mama said gently, her voice carrying the weight of years. "They are promised to another, a bride whose wedding is tomorrow. Her mother saved for 2 full harvests to afford them. Nkem's beautiful face twisted. I don't care about some poor bride. I want them now. The marketplace grew quiet. Traders paused their shouting. Customers stopped their bargaining. Even the children stopped their playing to watch. Child, Mama said, still gentle, still patient. There will be other beads. I will bring more next market day, beautiful ones. But these are spoken for. These belong to someone who needs them for a sacred ceremony. Everything belongs to me if I want it, Nkem spat. She reached down and grabbed the strand of red beads from Mama's basket. Mama's wrinkled hand caught Nkem's wrist. Not hard, not violent, just firm. Please, daughter, do not do this. Respect the promise I made. Respect the bride who waits. Respect your elders who speak wisdom to you. And that was when it happened. Nkem, this beautiful girl who had never been denied, who had never been told no, who had never felt the weight of consequences, raised her free hand and struck Mama across the face. The slap echoed through the market like a thunderclap, like a branch breaking, like a warning bell that no one understood yet. Mama's head snapped to the side. A red mark bloomed on her weathered cheek, and for a moment, just a breath, just a heartbeat, the old woman's eyes changed. The cloudy softness disappeared, replaced by something ancient, something powerful, something that made the strongest men in the market feel suddenly cold despite the afternoon heat. Then she smiled, that terrible smile that would haunt Nkem's dreams forever. You will know, Mama said. Before the sun sets 3 times, you will know what it means to strike an elder. What you have planted today, you will harvest before this week ends. Then she was gone. Between one blink and the next, the old woman vanished, leaving her basket, her stool, her beads scattered on the ground. Leaving nothing but the scent of burning sage and a silence so complete it seemed the world itself had stopped breathing. The villagers gasped. Some covered their mouths with their hands. Others stepped back, creating distance between themselves and Nkem, as if her curse might spread like sickness. Did you see? One trader whispered to another. She just disappeared, like smoke, like air. That was no ordinary market woman, an elder said, his voice shaking. That was something else, something we should not have witnessed. But Nkem laughed, loud and harsh, trying to hide the cold fear that had suddenly gripped her heart. Foolish superstitions, she declared, though her voice trembled slightly. The old woman simply ran away because she knew my father would have her punished. She snatched up the red beads from the ground and walked away, her maids hurrying behind her, their eyes wide with worry. Behind her, the villagers whispered and pointed. She has brought something dark upon herself, the women said, clutching their children close. Mark my words, the eldest trader proclaimed, adjusting his wrapper. Before 3 sunsets, we will see the consequences. The spirits do not forget. The ancestors do not forgive. That evening, when Nkem returned to her father's compound, she felt strange. Her skin prickled as if ants walked upon it. Her reflection in the brass mirror seemed somehow different, though she could not say how. The red beads around her neck felt heavy, so heavy, though they weighed almost nothing. You look pale, her mother said, touching Nkem's forehead with concern. Are you sick? I am fine, Nkem insisted, pushing her mother's hand away. Stop fussing. But she was not fine. That night, she dreamed of the old woman's smile, of her eyes changing, of her voice saying, You will know, you will know, you will know. When the first sun rose, Nkem woke to find her right hand, the hand that had struck Mama, was swollen. Not just swollen, grotesque. The fingers were thick as yam tubers, the skin stretched and shiny, the color of spoiled meat. She tried to move it, but pain shot through her arm like lightning through a dark sky. She screamed. Her mother came running, took one look, and screamed too. Her father sent for the village healer immediately. The healer, an old man named Obi, who had treated ailments for 40 years, examined the hand with growing concern. He pressed it gently, smelled it, looked at it from every angle. Finally, he shook his head, his face grave. "This is not sickness," he said. "This is not infection. This is something else, something I cannot treat with herbs or prayers. This is consequence." "What do you mean?" Chief Okonkwo demanded, his voice booming with authority and fear. "You are the healer. Heal her." "Some things cannot be healed, Chief," Obi said quietly. "Some things can only be endured. Your daughter struck an elder. Not just any elder, I hear. An elder who disappeared like morning mist. That is not a woman. That is a spirit. That is a test, and your daughter failed." Word spread through the village faster than fire through dry grass. By midday, every compound knew. Women gathering water at the river spoke in hushed, frightened tones. "Did you hear? Nkem's hand has swollen like a dead goat left in the sun. They say it smells of rot. They say no medicine can touch it." Men drinking palm wine under the great tree nodded knowingly. "I told everyone," one said, pouring wine from his gourd. "I said the spirits would answer. You cannot strike an elder and walk away unpunished. The ancestors are watching, always watching." Children whispered the story to each other, their eyes wide with fearful excitement. "They say her hand is turning black. They say worms crawl beneath the skin. They say she cries all night long." But Nkem did not cry. Not yet. She raged. She screamed. She threw things with her good hand and demanded that her father find a solution. Find a more powerful healer. Find someone, anyone, who could undo what had been done. Chief Okonkwo sent messengers to every village within 3 days' walk. He offered bags of cowrie shells to any healer who could help his daughter. He promised land, cattle, anything. 3 healers came. The first took one look at the hand and left immediately, fear plain on his face. The second tried his strongest medicines, chanting prayers and burning herbs, but the swelling only grew worse. The third, a woman known for her power with spirits, examined Nkem and then spoke directly to the chief. "Your daughter must find the one she wronged and beg forgiveness. That is the only cure. No medicine I possess, no prayer I can speak, will touch this curse. Only sincere repentance can break what she has brought upon herself." "Then we will find this mama," the chief declared. "We will search every village. We will bring her here and my daughter will apologize." But mama could not be found. No one had seen her since that day at the market. Her usual spot remained empty when market day came again. The traders who had known her for years shook their heads. "She never missed a market day in living memory," they said. "Not in rain, not in drought, not in sickness. But now she is gone, vanished like she never existed at all." When the second sun set, Nkem's condition worsened. The swelling had spread up her arm to her elbow. The skin had turned from red to purple to black, like meat left too long in the sun. The smell of decay filled her room despite her mother burning sweet-smelling herbs constantly. Flies gathered at her window. Crows perched on the roof of the compound, their cawing sounding almost like laughter. Nkem lay in her bed, her beautiful face drawn with pain and fear. The coral beads around her neck felt like chains. The bronze bells at her waist were silent now, for she could no longer move without crying out. Her maids, who once envied her beauty and wealth, now pitied her. Some refused to enter her room at all, claiming they could feel darkness pressing against their skin when they crossed the threshold. The village watched and whispered. "The second sun has set," they said. "One more remains." What will happen when the third sunset comes? Mothers used Nkem's story to teach their children. See what happens when you disrespect your elders? See what comes to those who think wealth makes them above consequences? Let this be a lesson you never forget. The elders gathered under the ancient tree, the same tree where decisions had been made for generations beyond counting. They discussed Nkem's fate in grave tones. Pride comes before destruction, one said. She wore her father's wealth like armor, thinking it could protect her from everything. But wealth cannot stop a curse. Power cannot undo disrespect. She must learn, or she will die. On the third day, as the sun began its journey toward the horizon, Nkem's arm had turned completely black. The decay had spread to her shoulder. She could no longer sit up, could no longer eat, could barely speak above a whisper. Her breathing was shallow and ragged. Chief Okonkwo knelt beside his daughter's bed, this powerful man reduced to begging. "Please," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "Please tell me what to do. I will give everything I own, every cowrie shell, every piece of land, every cow and goat. Just tell me how to save you." But Nkem could not answer. Her eyes, once so bright and cruel, were now dull with approaching death. Her beautiful skin had lost its glow. Her body, once strong and graceful, was now broken and withered. As the sun touched the horizon, painting the sky red as blood, red as the beads Nkem had stolen, red as the mark her hand had left on Mama's face, something changed in the room. The air grew thick, the shadows grew long, and there, at the foot of Nkem's bed, stood Mama. She appeared as she had been that day in the market. Simple wrapper, worn head wrap, wrinkled face, cloudy eyes that somehow saw everything. She carried no basket now, needed no stool. She simply stood, silent and patient, waiting. Chief Okonkwo fell to his knees. "Please," he sobbed, "please spare my daughter. Punish me instead. Take my wealth, take my life, but spare her." Mama's gaze moved from the chief to his dying daughter. "Your wealth cannot buy mercy," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "Your life cannot substitute for hers. She must speak for herself. She must choose for herself." With tremendous effort, Nkem turned her head to look at the old woman. In that moment, seeing death reflected in Mama's ancient eyes, feeling the darkness closing around her like water over a drowning person's head, Nkem finally understood. Finally, truly saw what she had been all these years. Finally felt the weight of every cruel word, every selfish act, every moment of disrespect she had inflicted on others. "I am sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I am so sorry. I was wrong. I was cruel. I was proud and foolish and blind. I thought my father's wealth made me better than others. I thought beauty gave me the right to take what I wanted. I thought youth meant I did not have to respect my elders. I was wrong. So wrong. Please, not for my sake, but because I truly see now, please forgive me." Tears ran down Nkem's face, washing away the last traces of the girl she had been. These were not tears of pain, not tears of fear. These were tears of genuine remorse, tears that came from a heart finally broken open, finally understanding. Mama moved closer. She sat on the edge of the bed and took Nkem's blackened hand in her own wrinkled ones. The touch should have brought agony, but instead, Nkem felt warmth, felt light, felt something like hope stirring in the darkness. "Consequences are not meant to destroy," Mama said softly. "They are meant to teach. You struck an elder, and so you had to feel the weight of disrespect. You took without asking, and so you had to understand loss. You lived without empathy, and so you had to experience suffering. But now you see. Now you understand. Now you are ready to become who you were meant to be." Mama began to sing. It was not in any language the chief recognized, not in any tongue spoken in the villages nearby. It was older than words, deeper than speech. It was the song of healing, the song of transformation, the song of second chances. As she sang, the blackness began to recede from Nkem's arm, slowly at first, then faster, like shadows fleeing from light. The swelling decreased, the smell of decay faded, the color returned not just to what it had been, but somehow better, healthier, more alive. Within moments, Nkem's hand and arm were completely healed, without even a scar to mark what had been. But something else had changed too. When Nkem looked in the mirror later, she saw that her face, while still beautiful, was different. The hardness was gone. The cruelty had vanished. In their place was softness, kindness, wisdom. She had been remade from the inside out. Mama stood to leave, but Nkem caught her hand. "Please," she said, "stay. Teach me. Show me how to be better, how to live with respect and humility, how to use what I have been given to help rather than harm." The old woman smiled, and this time it was not terrible. It was warm. It was proud. It was the smile of a teacher seeing a student finally understand. "I do not need to stay, daughter. You already know everything you need. You learned it in 3 days of darkness. Now go and live it in all your days of light." Then Mama was gone again, but this time her disappearance brought not fear, but peace. From that day forward, Nkem became a different person. She walked through the village with her head bowed in respect rather than raised in pride. She greeted elders before they greeted her. She helped traders carry their goods rather than demanding they carry hers. She gave away her finest wrappers to girls who had none. She shared her father's wealth with families in need, building homes for widows and buying medicine for sick children. At first, the villagers did not trust this change. "It will not last," they whispered. "She will return to her old ways." But weeks passed, then months, then full seasons, and Nkem remained transformed. The cruelty never returned. The selfishness never resurfaced. She had truly changed. One market day, a year after the curse, Nkem sat in the exact spot where Mama used to sit. She sold nothing, but she offered kindness. She listened to people's troubles. She gave advice to young mothers. She settled disputes between traders. She had become, in her own way, what Mama had been: a source of wisdom, a reminder of consequences, a teacher of respect. And on that day, an old woman approached her. She wore a simple wrapper and a worn head wrap. Her face was mapped with wrinkles. Her eyes were cloudy, but saw everything. She smiled at Nkem, and Nkem smiled back. "You have learned well, daughter," Mama said. "I am still learning, Mother," Nkem replied. "Every day I am still learning." Mama nodded, placed a string of red beads in Nkem's hand, the same beads from that terrible day, and vanished for the last time. Nkem wore those beads every day for the rest of her life. They reminded her of who she had been, of what she had almost lost, of the price of disrespect, of the power of forgiveness, of the possibility of change. The villagers told her story for generations. Mothers recounted it to daughters. Fathers repeated it to sons. "Remember Nkem," they would say. "Remember that wealth without respect is worthless. Remember that beauty without kindness is ugly. Remember that youth without humility leads to destruction. Remember that you can always change, but sometimes the lesson comes at a terrible price. Remember to honor your elders, for they carry wisdom you cannot see and power you cannot imagine." And so the village learned that consequences are teachers, that forgiveness is possible, and that true transformation comes not from avoiding punishment, but from accepting its lessons with an open heart. And they lived remembering this truth, passing it down through generations like precious beads, like sacred wisdom, like a warning and a hope for all who would listen. The end.